Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athlete trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. For this week's episode, we will be doing a story episode based on Sandra's day-to-day adventures.
In the fall. Actually, no, in the spring now, too.
Yeah, it's basically an all-year thing.
We have fall and spring football now.
Yes.
How could I forget that?
Honestly, how could you actually forget that? They're always around now.
Honestly, I always said I wanted to be a football AT, and now I get it year-round.
Be careful what you ask for.
We say this at the start of the episode. Football is a grind, but it is so much fun.
Honestly, I can admit when I was in it as a student, right? When you're in it, it was fun. The game days are really cool. The atmosphere is great. And then afterwards, you're like, holy smokes, what did we just go through?
Well, it's basically like each different position group is a different team.
Yep. And don't forget, just the thing that's happening on the field is just a car accident every play.
Right. Because even like you can't just one size fits all everything.
Yeah.
A DB is very different from an offensive lineman. You can't just be like, oh, you have a shoulder injury? Let's do the same rehab.
Yeah.
Let's do the same return to play.
For sure.
They're going to be very different.
Yeah. Each position has a different demand.
And who better to talk about those than Juan Cuevas, my co-head at Fullerton College. So 2 weeks ago, we did soccer stories with Lorena. She played soccer, she works soccer, and now we're switching gears and we're going football with Juan, who played football and works football, and he's worked football for years.
Interesting. We're doing 2 story episodes in a row about football, but different footballs. We've been wanting to do this, or at least I've definitely been wanting to do this one with Juan forever, because he's had so many years of football experience. For sure.
And just, I learn from him all the time. I hope he can say the same thing about me. I hope that he can learn from me too, because we do split the sport, which has been, it's pretty cool, just the different perspectives and seeing how different athletic trainers work.
Yeah, for sure. And well, that's the nature and like the experience of football, because a lot of times it's, not everything, and as we have talked about in the episode, most time when you're around football, it's a staff of multiple people. Mm-hmm. So that's really a good environment where you can all learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. And we are so lucky to be blessed with an amazing student staff, both MSAT and volunteers, which we do talk about. We talk about so much in this episode. We talk about just must in your kits when you have football, when you're working football, common injuries, weird injuries, because, they're not all textbook. Calling 911, as many of us have done working football, where you stand at football, the sports med team that you're working with, how you split up those duties, working football home versus away, because it can be different, and then just general advice. I think it's a pretty good episode.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a really fun conversation, and to hear the stories.
So why don't we hear one now? Juan, you want to kick us off with a story?
Sure. So when I was thinking about this, actually, I guess I go back to 2016. We had a pretty good group that year. And that year, we ended up winning the state championship. And at the end of the game, we won the state championship. We took a group photo, and not only did they get me with water, I was holding on to one of my students, and man, she got soaked. And there's a photo, so kind of like took multiple photos along with a video. And I thought that was the funniest thing. I think about it all the time, and partially it's because we do have that photo up in the office. So definitely, I recall that year being a really fun year, because not only was the student staff really, really good, I think it was still undergrad still from a university, the students that I had, but I had a staff of about, I want to say like 6 or 8 kids, or athletic training students. And I think I only had one from a program at that time, but the rest were all athletic training students that. It was such a good year that it was just so fun seeing her get soaked. So I really, I felt like I've always been pretty student centered, and I try to give them as much hands on as possible. So having that year, we had a good crew, and just seeing her completely soaked was really fun because I had a feeling something was coming. With regards to dunked on me because I've gotten that a couple times over the years, but that was the one that really that was really fun for me.
Who did it?
It was just a group of students in 2016. I think it was. I wish I could remember his name. Tukasa, I think his name was. A kid who was actually because I used to teach at another community college, and so he got a taping and modalities class, and then he wanted to get a little bit of experience with just observation hours. He didn't tape or anything else. He was just around, and he just happened to come the last couple of weeks of that year, and he came to a couple of those games, and he just happened to be at the last game too. So they got him involved, and he got me good.
That's the thing about football is like it's such a grind, but at the end of the day, it's fun. Like there's just so much going on, and there's so many people you get to work with, and each student staff is so different. It's just you just have to like put your head down and work, and then just enjoy all the moments you can.
That's the key, is just put the head down.
Yeah. Actually, well, you told the athletes put the head, tackle the head up though.
But yeah, yes, that's right. You're right. You are supposed to keep your head up.
Yeah. Look
See what you tackle.
Yeah. Look at what you're hitting. Yeah. So wait, how was it? How was the after being soaked? Because now you had to go through the whole cleanup process, right? Being soaked. How was that experience?
It was in December, so actually I had a jacket that was waterproof. So actually, it was water resistant. So I did get some on me, and my hair was wet. But man, she was soaked. I mean, she had long hair too. So I mean, her hair was like just dripping with water. And like I said, my jacket was water resistant. So actually, I was okay.
Okay, nice.
That was the perfect jacket to wear that day.
It really
Juan,
was.
I thought you would like this story from Heath B. He said his favorite football memory was when a pass got stuck in the wide receiver's face mask, and he was still able to score a touchdown with it stuck. He crossed the plane with the ball in his possession, and it took 2 refs to pull it out.
Oh my gosh.
So the ball was in his face mask?
Yes.
That's like in a movie, right? A little kid movie or something like that.
You can't make that up.
No,
seriously.
So my question is like, was it stuck and you started running, or you know what I mean?
Have
like,
no idea.
I would like some context on where on the field we were.
I think that might have came from, that movie Little Giants. Have you guys seen that movie?
Oh, that's a throwback.
Yeah, way back. Yeah, we watch every once in a while. We'll throw it because the kids, like that movie because that's some good actors in that too. So it's just funny.
Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite memories is I had a kid who got hurt, and it was little things like every game, but it was always on kickoff, every single kickoff. And at the end, I can't remember if it was the last game or second to last game. It was one of those two. He did kickoff. He ran straight to me, and he's screaming, "Sandra, I didn't get hurt!" He was so excited. It was like one of my. I could still play it in my head.
Nice, yeah. Like you said too, a lot of it's relationships too. You build relationships with student athletes, and sometimes when you have that kid that gets hurt all the time, when they finally don't, they somehow take pride in that too. So.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny though.
So Juan, I asked on our Instagram story, is a must in your kit when working football, but before I share some of those answers, I want to know what your must-haves are.
It's funny because in my kit I have a little bit of everything, right? And one thing that I've over the years have gone to grown to love was that the soft cast material. It's a little different. Ooh. It's not something that everybody has, but it comes in handy so often. It actually came in handy the playoff game last year. We were in the playoffs, in that first round of playoffs, which sadly lost. But one of our guys hurt his thumb, and I said, "Okay, well, we're not going to go get X-rays right now. Let's make a cast." And we made him a cast at halftime, and then he played the second half with that. And I feel like that's one of the ones that you just never know when you're going to use it, and it comes, in the playoffs, it comes in handy. I think it's a 3M. I don't even know the brand that we have, but it's
the Scotch cast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you introduced me to that. I don't think I knew about that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we so coworker Lorena and I, we ended up going to a casting seminar, like a little CEU thing at a local PT office. And it was just like the physical therapist. We got invited by Ned Berger, who was the longtime athletic trainer for the Angels. He was working at a local PT clinic, And somehow we ended up talking about that, and he invited us over. So her and I went over there, and the gentleman that, I can't remember his name now, the gentleman that gave the talk and showed us practice making casts and all that, he brought that up in how a lot of universities will use that for their offensive linemen, because a lot of offensive linemen like to have thick padding all over their wrists. So, they would make those soft casts, but enough to where it would give them enough support for that extension, but not limit completely. And then they would just cut it off, and they would use it every single day. So that's when I kind of learned to do that. So it's soft, and they take it on and off. I mean, this was a little different because he did hurt his thumb, and so he I think we went over and over to make it a little harder than the regular soft cast, or maybe we ended up using a regular casting material. But so yeah, it comes in handy.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Yeah, it's right. Yeah, that's right. Like, it's one of those things you don't really think about, like, oh, I need that, until you need it, and you're like, oh, I wish I had that.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of, I should probably stick some of that in the trunk.
Ooh.
Yes.
We do not have any in the trunk right now.
Well, speaking of kits, what's your must-have in your football kit?
So I don't want to give away some of the ones that we got yet, but one that we didn't get, surprisingly, is hydrogen peroxide. I use hydrogen peroxide to get blood out of everything, especially when like they're wearing white on white, and you're like, oh my goodness, they're gonna have blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Hydrogen peroxide. We did get a lot of. I'm just gonna go into it. Actually, we did get a lot of wound care supplies that people would just say wound care, but then no one ever really talked about like how to get blood out of jerseys. So I usually keep that. Our number one answer was PowerFlex or PowerFlex AFD.
Oh, okay.
That is the number one thing people keep in their kit when they work football. Second is any sort of like multi-tool equipment removal tools, quick release tool, tactical pen. I know Juan likes the tactical pens and the little credit card that comes with. Juan, I was going to share this with you today. This is the thing that I was telling you today that I was like, I really want to tell you this, but I can't. Not until tonight. Kevin J said he keeps golf tees. He says, you know those quick release clips for face masks? The end of the tee you stick in the ground, pops the clip loose at the center of the clip, and then the cup where you set the ball in the tee helps push the clip closed so it holds. I thought that was a perfect thing for everyone to have in their
That's
kit.
really cool.
Because we only have one quick release tool.
And it's inexpensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool. And come on, what athletic trainer is not a golfer at some point?
Right. Or, before go sideways, right? At least for me.
Yes. But that, the second was like screwdrivers, trainer's angels, emergency equipment removal tools, some sort of seatbelt cutter, multi-tool. People had various answers, but essentially all kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The last few years, I definitely have given my students that multi-tool, which is a pen, but also a pen light pen. It's a little tactical thing because it does have that little quick release point to it as well, because it's a what's called like a glass breaker or window breaker, whatever it's called, and then that tip is big enough to actually get rid of that those pins for the Rydell helmets.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a good way to show appreciation for the students. At the beginning of every year, I always give them some.
And they love it.
And I was going to say, too, and something that they can carry on into their career for a long time. That's awesome.
100%.
One of my preceptors, my first preceptor, got me pink scissors that are on my fanny pack. And I have two pairs because that one pair, because it's like a really old pair, it's super dull. I need to sharpen it, but it's like super dull. And so when people ask me for the scissors, I always give them like my nice ones, but sometimes like I have like if two people need scissors, they're like, oh, but you have scissors right there. And I'm like, yeah, but these are like super dull. Yeah. Like they're kind of just for show.
They're more sentimental now.
Right. We also got pickle juice or mustard packets, any sort of electrolytes for cramping, a helmet kit or zip ties, mouthpieces. That was next. And then those are all kind of like the most common ones. Some of our runners up were wound care, snacks, towels, and scissors or sharks.
Snacks for sure. I've never been a person to carry snacks during football or anything like that, but I know the students love carrying those around. One of our students right now, she's the MVP of that. She always has snacks.
I feel like I'm surprised no one said gum. I feel like people and coaches ask for gum all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know for basketball. Basketball's
Really?
yeah. At least everywhere I've been, they've all been about
asked in
gum.
basketball.
Yeah, there's a statistician that does our stats for our men's basketball. She always has snacks right there, and the coach is over there either grabbing gum or something like that. And I, go over there and sneak some stuff as well.
A must-have that is no one. I don't think anyone submitted this. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. But one that is necessary for Sandra, 100%, is a portable hand warmer. I call it my portable warm. It saves me on cold football nights, especially like even if we're like out in the rain or like something, like I just keep them in my pockets. I have one for each side, and it keeps my hands warm so then my hands are not freezing when I go to do an eval or like something, and I'm able to actually, even in the office, I will keep my hand warmers because it is freezing in there.
You also keep snacks in the office, right?
Yes, snacks and portable warm keep Sandra happy.
Yeah, actually, yeah, because Sandra was away for a couple of weeks when you were on vacation this summer, and I kind of snuck into her snack drawer. But I did replace it, though. I got her a big bag of snacks. What was it, Cheetos? Hot Cheetos?
Yeah, I came back to work, and there's like this giant bag of hot Cheetos on my desk, and I was like, okay, cool. Yep. And then Juan's like, I stole some of your snacks.
See, that's a good coworker right there.
I replenished and then some.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And then he was like, can I have some hot Cheetos? And I was like, well, technically they're yours.
Sharing is caring.
Yes.
That's right.
Some other ones that were not actually top answers, surprisingly, that I liked anyway, were radios and earpieces and cotton sleeves to throw over cut up elbows and knees.
Ah, yeah. It's also good. So
right.
I know, I think Lorena was talking about, like, at least for soccer, they used those swim caps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really need those for football, but I like the idea of the sleeves.
That is one thing that's nice about football is you don't have to deal with face injuries that often. Like most of the time, the face mask kind of shields. Mm-hmm. Actually, the next thing I was going to talk about was most common injuries. We just kind of got like there's no particular order of these, but like turf burns, contusions, just really anything that like is like big contact, like from a contact, right? Ankle sprains, shoulder injuries like AC joint sprains, clavicle fractures. Your wide receivers or DBs, you're going to see a lot of more like hamstring or groin strains, linemen, hand, wrist, finger injuries. With our linemen, we're seeing a lot of shoulder injuries. Unfortunately. But I put this one in for you, Juan, because I know you like fingers and you like to teach the students about fingers. Robert M said, I had a lineman fall with his hands in front of his face and get a finger caught in the face mask. He ended up with a Seymour fracture, which is a fracture of the distal phalange with an associated rupture and dislodging of the nail bed.
Oh, man.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Ouch. I think I had a quarterback. I think our quarterback's coach, he had something like that when he played for us a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, where like the back of the nail actually was poking back up from the back, on the front.
Were you there for that?
Yeah, he got sacked and he put both hands on the floor. So he ended up getting a mallet finger on one finger, and then the other one he had a fracture, and I believe the one that had the fracture was the one that had the nail kind of poking up to the back.
Oof!
Wow.
Yeah.
What'd you do for it? Just like pack it? Was it his throwing hand or no?
Yeah, it was. So then he came out of that game because he was, of course, in a lot of pain. So we iced him up, and then mom, well, because we have fellows on our sideline, right? The team docs are fellows, and this young lady, because she was fairly young, first year out of med school, she was getting fellowship, not med school, but was getting done with rotation. But she was basically doom and gloom, right? So she was painting a picture of like, okay, mallet finger, you might need surgery. That finger, we need to get that looked at. It doesn't look very stable. I mean, she was making it sound like it was a really bad deal. And I said, okay, we're just going to ice him down. I'm going to send him to a specialist tomorrow or the next day. We have a specialist I'm going to send him to. And then mom and dad, I think mom was crying and he's crying because he's thinking the season's over. I think it was only maybe game 3, 4, 5. It was early in the season. And the guy was, he was heartbroken. Finally, I said, okay, guys, come see me after the game. Don't listen to this doc right now, please. As I didn't want to, of course, disrespect her or anything in front of her. Right. But it wasn't until afterwards I said, "Tell you what, I'm gonna have you sent. I'm gonna send you over to the specialist. And there's a special way that I split fingers." And the specialist said, "Oh yeah, this is a fracture, but it's not displaced. And the mallet finger, we just kind of make sure you splint it in an extension, and if as long as he doesn't have pain, he can play." So then I made him a special splint on his finger, so he was able to throw. So he was actually throwing with a football on Thursday the following week after the swollen
Wow.
and he could have played, but the coach said, let's maybe save him because he was in warm-ups. He was throwing the ball. So, but he played the week after that, and he was fine, the rest of the season.
Nice. That's really cool.
Seriously. Yeah. That kind of reminds me of one of my quarterbacks one year. It was just a really freak injury. Like he was not around anyone. Like he threw the pass. It wasn't like anyone came after him. He just stepped back and kind of tripped. We were on a grassy field. I almost wonder if there was something that he stepped on or like a hole or something. He just kind of tripped backwards. It didn't look like much. He just fell on his hand. And he comes off straight to me and he's like, "There's something wrong with my thumb." And I look at it and I was like, "Oh." And I just kind of moved it and it kind of reduced. And I was like, "Oh, your thumb was dislocated. So, it's good. Can you hold a ball? And then he was like, "Yeah." And he goes to like grip a ball and then all of a sudden it dislocates again. And I was like, "Okay, that's weird." And then I just kind of like moved it and it reduced. So I was like, "Okay." So sent him to doc, and our doc was like, "I haven't seen one of these in 10 years. It is super unstable." He had to end up getting surgery. I want to say it was like that day.
Oh, wow.
Like it was very, yeah. And then he had like these huge pins coming out of his cast. His cast was the biggest cast I've ever seen. And his doc was like, "Yeah, the only time I saw that was in a car accident."
Wow.
And he just stepped back and fell on his hand. It was so weird.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It was very unstable. You know what's weird though? I mean, other than that, I guess I don't really count that because it's a thumb, not a finger, I guess. But I have only ever reduced one finger, like ever. I think I've only really seen one finger dislocation. And actually there were students there and I was in my head, I was like, "Should I give this to students?" And I was like, "No, I've never done this before. Let me do this." It was literally like last year, I think. And then, but I've reduced like probably 10 shoulders. Like, isn't that crazy? Like you'd think you'd see more fingers, but I've only really seen, and it was a defensive player. He was trying to grab the ball and just
came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one of my first years at Fullerton, a guy dislocated both his middle finger and his ring finger right at the IP joints. Both of them were out.
Wow.
And then, so he comes over and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I have so much pain." So I was like, "Oh, they're both out. That's crazy. Okay, let me put one in, then the other." He's like, okay. Then I buddy tape him, and he went back in, and he came right back. I was like, "Oh, they popped out again." So I had to then use some type of padding in a sense to kind of hold it up and then wrap it for him to go back in the game. So they popped right back out on both of the IP joints.
What the heck? That's crazy.
On the same hand.
We got some pretty weird injuries that people submitted. I asked them what
wait, let's not glance over the thumb that you had. Where did that happen? What kind of football was that?
It was 8-man football.
Which means that kid probably didn't even have that much of an opportunity to really come in and out of a game because people played both ways most times.
Although I want to say he was only our quarterback.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that he played anything else.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it was really easy to get someone else in who could at least hold the ball. It was right at the end of the game too. It was literally right at the end of the game.
Oh, okay.
Because I think from then, I think they didn't throw it the next play. I think they were just going to run it. And they're like, "We just need someone to take
the snap."
Yeah. A lot of people submitted pneumothorax and testicle injuries as their weirdest injury. We had also this first one, Kaleb B said, "I had a toe amputation from weightlifting. I put the toe on ice and transported to the emergency department. He lost the toe, but is still playing."
No way.
We had to do some balance work, but overall, it was an easy return to play. I also had an O lineman cut his ring finger off at the PIP joint. Same concept. Let the wound heal and good to go.
Oh, wow. Ronnie Lott?
Yeah, seriously. So what happened in weights?
So then I was like, how have you been in two situations that you've had phalange dislocations? He was like, actually, I had a third one, but it wasn't in football.
Well, how do you have three?
No, I was like, that is so bizarre.
Yeah, I've had several injuries, or I'm sorry, players who've had injuries in the weight room where they come in and half the nails falling off because they dropped the weight or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember when I worked at a high school, a kid, his finger was actually like it was peeled off the bone, like the skin was off the bone. You can see the bone out of his pinky, and poor kid was so pale and in so much pain. Of course, I'm just like rinsing it out with with saline solution and just pack it because it wasn't surprisingly it wasn't bleeding that much, but literally I could see the bone sticking out. So I just packed it. It's like, okay, let's call mom to take you to the hospital. And he ended up getting some sutures, and he came back late. I mean, it took him a few weeks, but he came back. But yeah, definitely I've had several people get hurt in the weight room, dropping weight.
How did that happen? Was it just a dropped weight?
No, he was spotting. That's what it was. So some kid was doing a squat, and he was a spotter. And when he went to put down the weight, there was another weight on the floor. So then he pinched his hand on the weight underneath.
Ugh.
And it's just the whole thing was peeled off. Ouch.
Ouch.
We had a head injury one. Head injury, no symptoms except headache, and only could see the color yellow.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah, so weird. He said it was like he was wearing yellow sunglasses. Everything was a tint of yellow. Huh. I called our team doc, and he said he could go home for the night and check in the next day as long as nothing escalated. I ended up referring him because it hadn't resolved the next day. Eventually, it did go away. I don't remember how long it took. He returned to play a few weeks later. The doc he saw for treatment didn't give me a good explanation for it. And I was so young and overwhelmed, I didn't ask for more info. I wish I had.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the whole concussions are so weird. You get some kids who I guess come back fairly quickly, and other kids that take forever. The ones that are kind of funny. I mean, I don't want to make fun, but the kids who get what's it called? Retrograde amnesia, where they just forget.
Right.
So no anterograde. I'm sorry. The one with they just keep asking you questions over.
The 30-second memory.
And over and over. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's at first kind of funny, and then it gets annoying, and then we have teammates calling me, Juan, can you please come get this guy? Because he keeps asking the same question. He's getting annoying.
I've seen one of those, just one, and it was when I wasn't even an athletic training student yet. I was an observation student. And I think that's when I kind of realized the seriousness of this career. And I was like, one day I'll have to be responsible for that.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of weird concussions.
You had an interesting one a few years ago.
Well, one of them, I had the kid, he was at practice, he was thrown to the floor, and then I didn't see it. And then his coach at the end of practice kind of came up to me and was like, hey, this kid, he was thrown and like hit his head on the floor. And it was like during like bag drills or something. And then he was like, yeah, can you just like take a look at him? So I like took a look at him. Oh no, he came to me because he was like, yeah, he hit his head, but he was having an asthma attack. So then I was like, okay, like I'll treat the asthma attack and, we'll work through like breathing and stuff. And then like, work through that. And then I was asking about his head. He was not saying anything about his head. Sounds good. Then we ended practice, drove back up to the ATR. I was about to leave to go home. I think I don't know why you were there. Randy was there for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know.
But then
just to be there.
And then like literally Randy had arrived. I was about to leave. And then all of a sudden one of my other kids runs in and was like, this kid's not okay. Like we need you. So then they end up bringing the kid to me. He like laid down on the treatment table and he's like, I can't breathe. Went into like this complete panic attack. And then he was like moving his hand, like opening and closing his hand. And then the kid who brought him in was like, hey, like he keeps doing this with his hand. And I was like, yeah, I noticed that. So obviously like running through cranial nerves and stuff, taking vitals, looking at him, and he's got like, so I asked him about like his hand. He's not really talking to me because he's like panicked. I'm calming him down. End up finding out that his hand is numb. So I was like, okay, that's weird. And then, as I'm doing my cranial nerves, I brush his forehead on one side, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my forehead. And I brush his forehead on the other side, has no feeling.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then I do it on the cheek, feels on one side, can't feel on the other side. And I was like, okay, so half your face is numb. This is not good. I'm like running through my differentials trying to figure out like what could, like, he's got an asthma attack. He hit his head. He is not feeling his arm or half his face. He's got no neck pain or like anything like of that sort. So I'm kind of like running through all these things, and I'm like, okay, well, you got to go to the ER because, you know, this is not a good presentation. Like, I'm worried. He ended up telling me that he had gone back after he got his head hit. So then in my head, I'm thinking like second impact syndrome, you can't breathe, you know, all these things. So then like running through all these things, he ended up just having a concussion, and he was out for quite a while. Like, it was definitely not just your normal concussion, and he had some lasting symptoms, but it was just a crazy presentation.
Also, I think the crazy thing is like you always talk about like with concussions, a sign is just like how emotions can change. And like he was a pretty good example. Like he would get really emotional,
super emotional,
and then like not, and then just kind of be fine,
right?
And get really emotional. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, you'll definitely see a wide range of like emotions. Yeah, you have a kid who's super tough, and then he's crying in the corner, or someone who's like, you know, a kid who's super happy. The kids with the amnesia, just overly happy. Kid, you know, people get annoyed with them.
Mm-hmm. So I did ask also if you've ever had to call 911 at a football game. 80% of people said yes. 20% of people said no. Jon S said, working a game last year, I had to call 911 for an opposing player. The other school didn't travel with an AT, so I was effectively covering both teams.
Oof.
So one of the offensive linemen was run blocking. I thought this was interesting that this is an offensive lineman, by the way, just for the rest of the story. Offensive lineman was run blocking and got tripped up. He collided with the top of his helmet into a teammate's hip.
Ooh.
He staggered and collapsed to the ground, not moving. Coaches run out and do an initial assessment and then start waving for help. I run out and start assessing him. Athlete says he felt multiple pops in his neck and back on impact. He has numbness and tingling in both arms and tenderness on the spinous process of C5, C6, and C7. Oof. Immediately had my AD activate EMS. I had a student with me who took C-spine without even directing her. She started talking to the athlete to calm him as I started equipment removal. Removed his face mask, cut his jersey open, then opened his shoulder pads, placed a pulse ox and wrist-mounted BP cuff on to get vitals. Once EMS arrived, the athlete had been laying on the cold, damp grass for 10 to 12 minutes and was showing signs of shock. EMTs tried to have a debate about equipment removal. I'm guessing because they had never done it before and were nervous. I talked them through it all. I told him it was coming off and we were putting a collar on him. Keep in mind the entire time my student is holding C-spine. We got all the equipment off the athlete and on a spine board to transport. As they loaded him into the medic unit, one of the senior EMTs comes over and says, if she, my student, needs a job, send her to us. After the game, I followed up with one of the opposing coaches and heard that x-rays were negative for any fractures, and the athlete walked out of the ER under his own power with a concussion diagnosis.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, C-spine's scary. It's been a few times that I've gone out there. Actually, one time I was at a Santa Ana game. It was the key to the county game. And one of the opposing players went down and he wasn't moving, and I was looking across the way to the other sideline, and I didn't see the other ATs who are now not retired, and they're just they're not going. So then I took off, and I get there first, and I stabilize, and I'm talking to the kid, and he's freaked out. Eventually, the other ATs come over, but I'm holding C-spine, so I'm not letting go.
Right.
And then, so then we had to we activated EMS. We had to log roll him, and the team doctor for the other school was the one kind of. K-Doc ready to go. So that was the one, holding C-spine the whole time. So, yes, but, the other guys didn't act fast enough, and was over there to help out.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Actually, that kind of goes in the next story. Andrea F said, I always touch base with other teams, AT and EMS, before the game to discuss possible emergency roles and discuss going out for injuries. This game was not in my home field. We had decided that we would take care of our own players unless the athlete fell closer to our sideline. Then we would attend to the other athlete until they got there to assess. During the game, one of my athletes got slammed to the ground. The turf was so hard you could hear his helmet hit the ground. As soon as I got to him and he saw he was seizing, I waved my hands in the air for EMS, and the home team AT, Lacey H, was already sprinting across the field to me to assist. The athlete's neck was okay. We held C-spine, but he came to shortly after and was very emotional, pushing us off, yelling, screaming, etc. My colleague, Lacey H, who helped me out with the emergency, was the ATC for the other team, and honestly couldn't have kept my cool without her there. He ended up having a concussion due to whiplash against the turf.
At least it was just that.
Right. Well, I kind of had like both those. So
Yeah.
I had a back-to-back C-spine case. That was like one Friday night. I was working a high school game that I ended up C-spining. That was actually my first football game certified, like ever. And then the next night I was working per diem a youth football, and the play happened right in front of me. It was like this little 8-year-old kid against like these two way bigger kids. And the kid just kind of got like stuck in between them, and his neck just went into complete flexion. And then he landed on his head, kind of like with his butt in the air. And so then I immediately like went C-spine. Randy was there, which Randy wasn't working, but he was on the sideline. So I just called him over because it was only me. We rolled him, and then he ended up, I called EMS. EMS in that county actually didn't spine board. They just C-collared and then got him to the rig. So he had like bilateral numbness and tingling. He ended up with a spinal contusion diagnosis. So luckily no fractures. But he was out for like at least 6 weeks after that. And then another time, it was my first day at a job.
Man.
I know, it was always the first. And then I had so I didn't even know this kid's name yet. And it was actually after the play. I didn't see it because I was dealing with someone else on the sideline. But I like looked back to the side. I like looked back to like scan, and my kid's on the floor. It was one of the opposing players just like came after my kid, and he's like punching him. And then my kid ended up like taking his head back, like full neck extension, and then just falls into the ground, almost like reverse spearheading himself. Like he just like fell right on the top of his head, but like backwards. Oh. And like when I went to watch the video later. So then he ended up seizing as I was running out to him. So then I roll him on his side of the recovery position. And then luckily the where we were playing against, I had actually worked previously as an hourly. So then I already knew their EMS and their EAP and all that stuff. So, and they had a good student squad that actually really helped. We log rolled, we got him. We ended up cutting off the jersey and taking off equipment, which my equipment manager like later was like, listen, if you ever have to cut off a jersey, make sure you cut down the seams, because basically we had cut straight down, and because we had cut straight down, they couldn't use that jersey again. And so they had to retire his number. But if you cut on the seams, then they could have like re-sewn it back together. And like, so that's good to know. So don't cut straight down. If you have the time, if you have the consideration that you want to save the jersey, you can cut down the seams. Anyway, so it took a while to come to. He wasn't able to really talk to me at first. He was just grunting. And he was actually able to move his legs. But his arms were really weak. And then he also had like very painful spinous process, like tenderness. So then I was like really hesitant to get him to move his neck, especially because I didn't see the play and just what he was like saying. So then we ended up packaging him. He was just a concussion though, luckily.
That's good.
lucky then. But that's still scary though, because you never know.
Right. Exactly.
I know back in 2009, there was a story where there was two ATs, both from opposite sidelines, and there's a kid who ended up having a C-spine injury. And when they got to him, they kind of helped each other out, and they had to do rescue breaths because he actually did suffer a severe, catastrophic C-spine injury. But they kept him alive, so
Wow.
he had a pulse, but he wasn't breathing, so he kind of severed high enough to where So they had to do rescue breathing, and that's how. So they saved his life, but unfortunately, he became quadriplegic.
Wow.
So
That's insane.
Never happens, right?
Seriously. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, knock on wood.
What is that, like C3, C4 that's responsible for breathing, I think?
I think it's C3, right? The phrenic nerve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scary.
Another person said Chris H said he had a femur fracture during a JV game, hit by his own teammate on kickoff return. Helmet to the knee. Mom was convinced it was on purpose. Had our head coach send in the game tape. We splinted it, called EMS, and they transported. If I can remember right, it was right above his growth plate, and so he had surgery that day.
Wow.
I haven't had a femur fracture in the past, but definitely I've had a lot of fibular fractures or like ankle dislocations. With they end up with a lot of hardware. It's just one of the reasons why they banned the horse collar tackles, right? Because they get stuck from behind.
Right.
So we had so many of those over the years. So yeah, it's so unfortunate, and not everybody comes back from those. If you had several guys who try to come back and they're just never the same.
Oh, that's terrible.
But one kid actually last year came back from that, and last year was a starting running back, and he just went off, and he was so fun to watch last year because he was really, really good. So, but again, I think he's only one of the few ones that actually come back at basically to full strength and full speed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen often though.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Have you ever heard of this one, though? Marissa S says, my weird one was a broken proximal tib fib on one of my freshman linemen. A proximal tib fib.
Proximal tib fib.
They weren't even doing anything crazy, and they sent a kid to get me from the stadium saying someone broke their knee. I went over to the grass field, and this poor kid was screaming bloody murder. Big kid, huge legs. I couldn't feel what was wrong, but I knew I couldn't move him. I couldn't even get his legs splinted. He ended up spending a couple of days in the hospital and had to have surgery. He did not come back to football.
Oof.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
You also had an interesting fibula experience with football as a student.
You know what? I totally forgot about that until this moment, actually. I had I want to say he must have been a receiver.
Which, by the way, was this your first game as a student? Like as in your rotation?
No, because my first game was in Hawaii.
Oh, okay. But this was the first one in the States.
The first home, yes.
The continuous U.S.
Yes. So this kid, he was tackled from behind, and just the way that the play had gone, it was also on the sideline. He was going to the sideline, which is also stupid that he got hurt. But anyway, so he was trying to, get to the sideline. Someone came up from behind. It was kind of like a late tackle, and the opponent had taken kind of like a posterior force and shifted his whole fibula forward. So there was a dislocation of his fibula forward. And so when my preceptor and I got to it, it looked like his patella was dislocated. But when you palpate his patella, it was in place.
That's crazy.
It was actually his fibular head that was anteriorly displaced.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Which was also really sad because he wasn't able, I don't think he played football again, and he had a scholarship. He was a senior.
Well, I guess another story with regards to like fractures and all that was a kid who we thought was just a hip pointer. He went to block somebody. A wide receiver was trying to block a linebacker, and the linebacker put his knee right in his hip. And at first he was just trying to run it off in a sense, and he eventually he couldn't do it. So then we iced him down because he was in so much pain. I think it was like that Tuesday, so a Saturday game, came in for treatment. I think that's when we used to do treatments on Sundays. And came up for treatment Sunday, and then Monday, and I think Tuesday's like, I can't do much of anything. This really, really hurts. And he had a little bit of bruising on the outside, African American kid. But then he said, you know what? Let's just go to urgent care. Let's get an X-ray just in case there's something there, on your iliac crest, because he was, of course, point tender. He comes back from urgent care. He's like, yeah, they told me everything was fine, but they let me have a photo of it. And when I picked up the photo, I saw a huge line down the side of his pelvis. I said, I think they missed something here. I'm no X-ray tech, but let me send this to our team doc. And I sent a photo to my team doc, and he said, yeah, it doesn't look right. So send him over. So then the next day he saw him. I said, yeah, he had a pelvis fracture. The iliac crest was broken, and it was kind of down. It was the fracture was down. It wasn't across. It was definitely down. And that was, I want to say, the fourth game of the year. So he was out. He was one of our best receivers that we had. I think almost in school history, like those 4 games that he played, lights out. Gosh, he was so fun to watch. So then he was out, and then little by little his pain decreased. And then once the doctor cleared him to run around and all that, he ended up coming back for the state championship game in 2017. And I think he almost had 100 yards. He missed a touchdown by a foot. So he was able to come back, and so he rehabbed and he came back. But yeah, there were so many times that I sent people to urgent care and they miss a fracture, different things. It's pretty annoying.
Oh, for sure. That's super annoying.
Can't they just have orthos on call?
Right?
Can they just have an ortho urgent care?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So Mason B said he had a football player with rhabdo at the end of practice and after gassers. He had full body cramps that didn't resolve with immersion or liquids by mouth. The county was staunchly against rectal thermometers, so we treated everything like heat illness. Ended up calling 911 and transporting. That was the 3rd ambulance I called in 2 weeks. Ooh. So I ended up presenting to all the high school ATs on differentiating heat illness, rhabdo, sickle cell, and I think sudden cardiac arrest and seizures as well. The football player was able to return in 4 to 5 weeks after protein levels and kidney function returned to normal.
Yeah, I drove a kid one time to the emergency room because he did not want to call 911. He didn't have anybody to take him. He was from another state. He's like, no, Juan, just take me. Just take me. I don't want to go in the ambulance. No. I was like, okay. So I had a Jeep at the time. So I opened up the back of the Jeep, and him and his brother, we threw him in, and he just was so locked up and seized because his muscles were cramping so bad. So they're like, okay, here we go. So I drove him to the emergency room, and I remember going inside. It's like, yeah, can you help me out, please? So they came out with a wheelchair, and he kind of wheeled him towards the back because he was in so much pain. And surprisingly, they actually gave him a pill, and I forget. I guess I didn't ask what it was. They gave him pills and had him just wait, and we waited there for a good hour and a half, and then they finally, and I don't even think they gave him an IV. Anyway, so I remind him about it every once in a while when I see him and post something on social media. He just had a kid not too long ago, so I do remember. Hey, remember when we were in the back of my Jeep and you couldn't move?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Speaking about rhabdo, we had a kid years ago who he had been sick during right before camp, fall camp, and then I think he came back. I think day 2 of fall camp. He's like, dude, I was a starting linebacker. I got to get my spot back. So he was, working extra hard trying to get his spot back, but he had just come back from being sick. And then I saw him after practice. You could tell he was just beat. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get in the ice bath one, and then I'm like, I got to make sure I drink a lot of fluids tonight because I really dehydrated, really overdid it. So then the next day, coach said, hey, did you hear what happened to so and so? I was like, no, I know he was really beat up yesterday from It's like, no, he ended up he felt sick and he drove himself to the hospital, and I guess they did some type of blood work on him, of course, and they said that if he would have slept, he probably wouldn't have woken up because his levels were so high because of rhabdomyolysis.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm glad he took himself.
Yeah, he was out for a long time. So luckily, he had recognized that he wasn't right, and he went. Because if not, I mean, let's say he would have just fallen asleep or something like that, then the doctor's like he told me when he came back, a week later, because he was in the hospital for a couple of days, and by the time he got out of there and all that, it took him a little while. And I remember him saying that they told him that if he would have waited, another several hours, he probably wouldn't have made it.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I want to say it took. About 4 or 5 weeks. It took a long time for him to get cleared because he kept getting blood work to see if his blood levels were better. And I remember our team docs like, nope, he's not ready. Some of these levels are still way too high, so he couldn't play for a long time.
Dang, that's crazy.
So almost lost him. Scary.
That's so scary. That is so scary. Demi M says, I had a safety coughing up blood after the game. He had a sinus infection during that week and he took a hard hit in one of the last plays of the game and it knocks some stuff loose. He was in the bathroom after the game coughing up blood. Scared the pants off of us, but he was okay. He just opened up some capillaries.
Yeah, I did.
Fun night in the ER for him, though.
I haven't had very many kids who've coughed the blood other than like a mouth injury. But still, scared to think like, oh, what could happen? What could it be?
Right. The only thing I can think of recently internally is a kidney laceration just from a hard hit. And the kid just had pee in his blood and he was like, I don't think this is supposed to be here.
No.
But he just had to, I think he just had to sit for like a week. I don't think it was, and it just self-resolved. I don't think it was anything crazy.
That's good.
Yeah, when I was working at the high school level, I had a kid who came in with blood splattered on his pants. Because I was at a high school, I got hired as the athletic trainer and the director of student health services.
Oh,
so I was
crazy.
the glorified nurse, in a sense. So then, he came in. So I had my office, and he comes in. He's like, you can tell he's like freaked out. It's like, dude, what's going on? It's like, and he lifted up his shirt, and he had splatter of red blood all over like his pants. Because when he was going, he went to the restroom, he saw that there was bright blood coming out of it, so he freaked out. So he splashed all over the place.
Oh no!
So then, so I called mom. He had to put his sweatshirt in front of him or whatever. That he ended up going to the emergency room, and then so we found out that he when he made a tackle at practice, the guy's cleat hit him right above in the lower abdomen, so he bruised his bladder. So
shoot!
Bladder. It was bright red blood, and so he had ultrasound for his kidneys, and they said no, he had a bruised bladder. So they just gave him antibiotics and told him to take I think it was like a week off, and then he came back after that. He was fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
he was freaked out. He was shaking because, of course, there's blood coming out of a spot you want it coming out of.
Yeah, shouldn't be coming out of there.
Yeah.
No.
Man, I think we could talk about 911 injuries in football for days. Honestly,
weird. Don't see that one coming.
Yeah.
So Juan, where do you stand at? Well, I know where you stand at football, but has it always been the same where you stand, or has it changed?
I think I've always stood behind the play on offense, no matter if it's our team or their team, because I like seeing the play going forward, so I can catch anything from behind. So it's usually the place that I like the best. Unless I'm moving around in between, like, a kick or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, you'll find behind, maybe like 5 or 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, so I can see the play going away from me.
I asked this question on our Instagram stories, and the most common was, it was 57% was it varies. I don't think that everyone has like a very specific place that they stand. 17% was the next highest, and they said they stand behind the line of scrimmage. But it was really close, honestly, because 14% said in front of the line of scrimmage, and then 12% said at the line of scrimmage, which I don't know how people stand at the line of scrimmage. Like, there's so much going on right there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people coming in and out. There's coaches yelling.
Right. I feel like the coaches stand there. Like, it depends on if you're home or away. Like, the chain gang's there.
Yeah, I try to stay away from that area as much as I can, unless I'm trying to find somebody or... Other than that, yeah, definitely stay away from that.
Right. The only problem with behind the line of scrimmage is those plays that go to the sideline, like to go to our sideline. Yeah. It's hard to follow through, or like they're very far away from you.
Yeah. The thing that kind of scares me too is just the people that are on the sideline when the play does come this way, because we have a Hornet supporter, Jerry, who likes to go to all of our games, and sometimes he stands in certain areas, and he's gotten run over at least twice. And he's not young. I mean, he taught for 40-some years at FJC, and he's gotten run over a couple of times. Like, Jerry, you're gonna break a hip. Can you please? I already have 2 knee replacements. I don't need to be taking care of you.
Right.
It's been a couple times.
So what about students? How do you set up the students? Like, where do you have them stand in any particular spot?
Well, we have them move around. So, there's some people that we have some students that stay at least with me, and okay, you can stand with me. You're on the field with me. But I know like some people like standing on ball, and then we have someone on the other side too that we're kind of spread out. And we of course have a couple, observation students, unfortunately for them in a sense, that stand in the background. But I feel like they get a lot of work too. I mean, they're not only are they hustling the water bottles and everything else, but if there's some type of blood situation or something like that, or blood cleanup, or they're back there. They're first responders, back there. So as as much as it does stink sometimes to do, the hydration engineer job, sometimes they do get a lot of work back there too.
No, they're some of the most important people in our
Mhm.
staff.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
We have them injury spot. We have them first aid because they're all first aid certified. We have them do waters. They kind of get a pre-idea and they learn from like the actual like athletic training students in a program of how the last two like game and scrimmage, we've had it perfectly so they have like a buddy system.
That's cool.
So that they're able to like really spend a lot of time with someone in a program that they can like learn and mentor or mentee from, I guess, be a mentee of.
Yeah.
So Joseph S says he splits up the duties in football if you have the proper amount of hands. With multiple ATs and students, it's easy to put one AT on ball. One AT has a standby floater behind the scenes, and then one student goes on ball with AT. The other two students are split between offense and defense. If the AT and student go on the field for on-field injury, they pass off the injury to the specified student for that side of the ball they have, and the floater AT helps out at the treatment table. The opposing side student then assumes responsibility for the student doing the sideline eval and treatment until they return.
That's good. I like that. I mean, because I know there's at home games there's two of us, but at away games it's just you, so it's a little different. So forever and ever, I did that at Fullerton. So I think it was like 16, 17 years that it's just me going to the away games, and some of the home games too. Because my former co-head, she wanted to stay away from football altogether. And I mean, she retired eventually, but because she did football before that, she didn't like it anymore. So, but yeah, so it was just by myself. So I really relied a lot on the students, especially the ones who are in the program, because like, okay, you got to get your hands on. So okay, I'm going to be over here with this injury. So then you have ice on the field. Something happens, then it's on you. So there's a lot of that. I feel like they got really good experience, the hands-on experience, because there's only me. It's like, okay, well then it's on you too. So then, yeah, if let's say something was to happen, I would allow them to do the initial evaluation on the field. We go back, they do a secondary evaluation, and then I will have them present it to our team doc. That's when our team doc just travel with us.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the fellowship program, they used to send them to all of our games. So sometimes I would feel bad because they would go all the way to San Diego and play at Grossmont or Palomar, and they live in over by the beach in Manhattan Beach, so they have to drive all the way over there. Like, sorry guys, and then eventually our team doc's like, I can't do that anymore to them, so we'll just cover our home games. It's like, okay, fine.
That makes sense, right?
That's cool.
It looks like of the couple hundred people who responded to how they are able to work football, most of them are 1 AT with students, and that's at 36%. The next was 1 AT with no students, and that was 30%. And then very close was multiple ATs with students. So that's
that's cool.
A big jump.
I wonder what the breakdown is on multiple students too. Like, are we talking like 2? Are we talking 5? Like, I'd be interested to see that breakdown.
I don't know, but there was only 5% of people who had multiple ATs on the sideline with no students.
Yeah. Yeah, for home games, I feel like we have good coverage because sometimes Randy shows up too. So,
I'm there.
Yeah, but with the breakdown of students, I mean, I've had years where there was maybe 3, 4, and trying to get the whole football team out with 4 students. Man, those were rough days. And I've had years, like back, I want to say 2009, I had about 18, like literally 18 students would walk across the field to go say hello to the other AT.
Holy smokes.
I was like, we're intimidation with numbers, right? So, and, trying to figure out jobs for 18 people was rough too. It's like, okay, these 4 are going to be on the field, but something happens. But at the same time, we don't need 15 people out there. Okay, you guys, so it was always fun. So, and again, I would leave the jobs for the MSAT students. So back then, it was just the undergrad program, right? So I would have put them in charge of giving people jobs. So okay, you have to decide who's going to be on ball, who's going to be on water, who's going to be on different things, and also kind of shift them around too. Fun years.
It's crazy to see how different people do it, and like how it's different in honestly, if you have MSAT students or if you don't have MSAT students or if you don't have students at all. I've worked football with just me and no other students. I've worked with me and a part-time AT. I've worked with me and another full-time AT. I've worked with MSAT students and volunteer students. So it's just, each place and each, like, what's the word for configuration? Each configuration of students and ATs and roles is just different.
For sure.
Yeah, when I worked at the high school level, it's just us. When I worked at my first high school, there's 2 of us full-time, and we did football. Just us 2, and then I think we had maybe a couple water boys, not really students. And then in my second job, it was just me, so I didn't have anybody else. So that was fun, but it wasn't as intense, and it wasn't until I came over to eventually that's when I became a preceptor. So then I started getting like one student from Chapman University way back when, 2004. And then,
wow!
When I went over to Fullerton, I started building that program to have as many people as possible. Plus, I used to teach Randy's class actually. So then from there, I would get students from that class to help out as part of the hands-on experience. Like, okay, take this class, but then you get credit by coming in and observing, and then eventually hands-on.
Wait, how funny that now all 3 of us, you passed it on. Eventually it was my class, and then now it's Randy's class.
Yeah, passing the
Just keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Literally.
Juan, would you rather work football at home or away?
Home games, because we finally have a home stadium. Oh my gosh, forever and ever we traveled to a high school 20 minutes away to the high school across the street. Where I mean, that's where it started back in 1909 or however long ago they had football.
Right.
Football over at Fullerton, but we always traveled. We always had an away game. Every game was an away game. So I'm so happy to be at home finally. And actually, this weekend we have another the Sherbeck Classic. So I'm hoping we have a good turnout this weekend.
It should be.
Oh, that's exciting.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It was a lot of fun last year. The first time ever having a home game, and so there's a lot of people showed up and. It was nice seeing the stands filled, so I'm hoping they do the same thing this year.
77% of people in our polls agreed with you. They said they'd rather work home. Only 23% of people said they'd work away.
Yeah, and I'd rather be at home because then we can leave right away rather than having to drive 2 hours to get home.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Is I feel like football is like your travel's just terrible because you got to bring
You got to bring everything.
Everything. So, bring
the trailer full of stuff.
I know. I got to drive the trailer now.
So being hosted, isn't that fabulous compared to like other sports?
You know who's really good for a long time is over at Riverside, the ATs over there, Todd B. He was always real gracious on, don't bring anything. Just bring water bottles if you want them. I'll have coolers on the sideline. I'll have Gatorade for you in the locker room. Bring extra. And he was always supplying everything. So when I went over there, I really just took the students and our kits, really our trunk. Other than that, it was so he kind of started that a while back. So then I said 1 year when we finally get a home game, I'm going to try to do the same thing. So last year we tried to do that with everybody, but people still brought their stuff. So don't bring anything. And they still brought their own stuff. So, but I'm going to try to hopefully we'll do that again. To just because traveling with stuff sucks sometimes. So
I think it's getting more common. I feel like when we travel, I haven't had to bring water in. Honestly, I can't even remember the last school I've had to bring water to. Like maybe my first year at my last job, but I feel like we didn't have to bring any last year.
I feel like that's so tough. Like you already have to bring so much stuff. Bringing water is already difficult to.
Well, we have an unpopular opinion. Abby S says she would rather work away. She says, I don't have to set up or tear down. That's the one thing I dread about hosting.
I mean, that's fair.
I'm not sure how it is everywhere else. I work in secondary school setting, but we supply water, injury ice, etc. to the visiting team. So it's just a lot of extra stuff to take care of after the game since it's only me. However, some schools we travel to don't set up water, so lugging everything around is a pain, especially when our lids don't have the leak seal anymore. And so you have to like flexi wrap the top.
Yep. Which, by the way, if you flexi wrap it too tight, it doesn't pour water anymore.
Correct.
Oh,
Is the seal.
Yeah.
There's got to have the little air.
Yeah, it
gap?
seals it. I noticed that before because I think we would seal them like when we were packing them for like track, like when we would host a track meet. So like they didn't just spill all over and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they'd be trying to use it and it's like, oh, I think it's empty. I'm like, no, guarantee it's not.
Yeah, because the lid has a hole on the outside and there's a hole on the inside in the middle, right? So there's the air exchange that happens there. So if you flexi wrap on top of it, yeah, you're not allowing for that air exchange.
Crazy science.
Yes. Yeah. Lastly, just some advice to work football. We got one from Christopher B that said, "Keep your head on the swivel. Don't turn your back to the field." Which reminds me of mine. My number one rule is always have an exit route, and it's not backwards. Usually, it's side to side.
Yeah.
You want to move. Usually, like if you are, for example, like if you're in the front of the line of scrimmage, you want to move like towards the line of scrimmage or like towards the quarterback because it's going opposite of the play. Yeah. Everyone, and I always tell the students, because you're standing in front, right? You're going to move back and there's a brick wall behind you. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go anywhere. You're going to get smushed.
Yeah, and you have to also watch out for the officials because they run. Mm-hmm. And they run down the sideline, and sometimes they bump into coaches and they go get in trouble. And one year, one of our guys got an interception. I was so excited watching him run, and here comes the official, whack. He ran me over. I was like, I'm so sorry. So that happened one time. He was not very happy with me. He's like, I was really excited about the kid getting an interception. I'm sorry.
That's really funny.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
I did have one time when I was a student. I want to say it was maybe it was my second year in the program. I did have a play come to the sideline, and I tried to move backwards, and it didn't work, and I took a helmet to the shin.
Oof.
Oh.
That was like the only time that I've almost gotten blown up. We did have a kid who our students were standing behind the football players. This was last year, and the play was coming off, and one of our I think he was a D lineman. He grabbed, he like kind of caught the player and prevented him from going into our students.
Oh.
Do you remember that video, Juan?
I do.
We have a video of it.
Oh, do you really?
Mm-hmm. He just like the play comes off the sideline and he just like boom grabs him.
Got lucky then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like again, that's why Jerry got knocked over because he was standing in front of the play, so it was coming towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, I think an official ran him over too. I mean, I think
oh my God! No, you know what?
Twice.
I remember the official one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, Jerry, you got to stand back. Get behind the play.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know what's funny is when you guys came to my place for the scrimmage, I was on your guys' sideline, and he came up to me. He was like, "You here to keep me safe?"
You're like,
And I was like, "Yeah, Jerry. That's why I came over here. Make sure you're okay."
Love Jerry. He's had every game. Loves it, and the kids love him too. So it's really fun.
That's good.
Do you have any last minute advice to work football on? Any mottos?
Mottos. Just the same thing. I guess keep your head on a swivel. I feel like I've always been really good about catching things. What I tell my students all the time too is that it's okay to talk, but you got to look at the field. So you can have conversation with somebody else, with a player, with another student or whatever, but you have to keep your eyes on the field because you're going to miss something. And then later on, you're going to be running out there and you're not going to know what happened. And it's going to look bad in a sense. So you have to keep looking forward, I guess, and talk, but just do that.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah.
You know what's really crazy and nerdy? I don't play it that much, but playing Madden, Randy used to play Madden, and then we went and got like a little like copy from like an older copy. Playing that helped with my field vision so much.
Oh.
Because I've never played football, obviously. Right. And so me being able to like kind of navigate through like finding the gaps and kind of like just being in the like point of view or like perspective of a football player. Now I can almost see like the game after the first time I had like picked up a controller and actually like kind of made my way through the virtual football field. I feel like I'm able to see football differently.
Okay. Yes, I guess interesting viewpoint, because I mean, I grew up playing football.
Because you played.
Yeah, I played only in high school, yeah, but then video games, yeah. So I guess,
Right.
And being a student too, and being a student from like Bill Chambers and then Dave, just being able to their mentorship and see, okay, they kind of put me in that same direction. I guess I've always been able to spot things from afar.
For sure.
One thing that I guess I kept thinking about, like stories and maybe what I pride myself into in a sense too. I talked about having the casting material, is being able to kind of come up with things to allow people to kids to go continue to play. I had a student one time that open dislocation of his middle finger when he tried to catch a football. So he reduced it himself in his glove, and then it was a ton of blood. So then stopped that. He went in and got it stitched up and all that, sutured. And then he thought he was going to be out. And even our team doctor's like, I don't know how you can really protect that because it'll open up. And I said, I beg to differ. Is that the right term? So I used what's it called? What's that thing called? Orthoplast. And I basically went around his fingers. And I think it was the two fingers, or was it these two? It might have been the middle two, because it was middle finger. So I basically made the orthoplast go around here. So he had to cut his glove. So he only had, the two fingers in the glove. And then so the orthoplast was there, and I made him hold the football, or like hold the football like this. That way it was kind of in that shape. And then he was able to catch a ball. And then I showed it to our team doc that, it wasn't going to go anywhere because he was buddy taped and he had a padding in between and all that. He's like, okay, I guess he could play because that thing's not going anywhere. So then he was able to play. So it's always it's fun to kind of make things up with orthoplast or the casting material to allow people to come back and play.
That's crazy. That's cool.
That's what I think is so interesting too about football, is I feel like there's so many injuries that are surprisingly playable in football, that if the same thing happened to like a basketball player or like a baseball player or like some other sport, they wouldn't be able to play with it.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's true.
Like people play with fractures all the time.
All the time. Yeah. All the time. And some shouldn't be playing with fractures, but they're so cheap.
So we had your number one rule in this episode, but what would be your advice to work football?
My motto in general about being an athletic trainer, I think you've heard this. Being an athletic trainer is about being adaptable.
And I feel like football embodies that.
Absolutely. You walk in every single day, and as an athletic trainer, you walk in every single day and you have no idea what's about to hit you, right? But I feel like with walking on the football field, like I said in the beginning, each position group is so different. Each coaching position is, you have to build the relationships with each of those groups and each of those people and the athletes there, and you just never know how something's going to present. You never know how people are going to take something. You never know how some injury might occur and that person might be able to play, or that person might not be able to play. It's just, you have to be adaptable.
I like that.
Now that you've worked one football game,
that's
one
true.
Football scrimmage certified.
Yeah, that's right. I can now say I've worked. I was a football athletic trainer for an evening.
After hearing all this, does it make you want to work football now?
No, absolutely not. I would, again, I've said it before. I'm not opposed. I will help. Like in the context of what happened.
I feel like several of the stories that I shared, you happened to be there.
Yeah. Look, I'm not like, no, I'll never, ever do that. No, I don't want to. But like, if we need help, I'm not going to be like, no, I don't work football. No, I'll do it.
Oh, Randy's the fun Uncle Randy.
Exactly. I have a nice role with with our football team as the fun uncle. I was actually in that athletic training room today. Saw a few football guys. Right? Do you dap them up? Hey guys, nice win last week. And then I promptly went back to the gym. I did my part. Right? They asked me a couple. Yeah, I did. They asked me a couple questions. Hey, do a couple special tests. Oh yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Good job.
So anyway, if you're new, we do several different types of episodes. This was a story episode. We also do education episodes where Randy, if he's doing one of the episodes, he will read a bunch of research articles and synthesize them. We make it a conversational format. Those are available for CEUs, so check those out. Some of them are free CEUs, so check those out. We bring people on for interviews. We talk about stories from athletic trainers all over the world, which is still my favorite thing to say. I think I say that every single episode.
It's the coolest thing ever.
We also have a Facebook group if you guys want to network with other people on the show. It's facebook.com/group/AT Corner Podcast. There's only one question to get in. Where did you hear about our podcast? And you can automatically be entered into the world of AT Corner community. There it is. We haven't had that horn yet this episode.
Yeah, no, I started it with Juan when you introduced Juan.
Okay. I must have just...
You've gotten so used to it, you just tune it out now. That's basically what was just said.
If you guys are interested in other CUs or other opportunities like MedBridge, for example, promo codes down in the show notes below. Show notes is where everything else is, so make sure you scroll down, check all those fun things out, and we will see you next week. You got anything else, Randy?
Nope, that was perfect. Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.